Hi everyone, long time no speak. It probably doesn't feel as long for you because you'll be watching a ton of different people in your subscription boxes, but I haven't filmed for 2 weeks now and that's quite a long time for me. I don't typically take 2 weeks off YouTube. I have been uploading between like 1 and 3 videos every week for years now. So yeah, it feels like it's been a little while, but I had a nice break and I'm excited to be back. I specifically took 2 weeks off after the release of my novel. As I'm sure most of you are aware, my fantasy novel The Flames of Albiyon came out on the 2nd of September and I just felt like I needed a holiday, so I did that. I had some time off and that was really nice, and now I'm super excited to be back. But I thought the best way to return would be with a Q&A and just a chatty catch-up video, because it just feels like so much is going on and so much has happened since I last even broached one of these kind of videos, and I know that's the case for lots of people, but on a personal level, yeah, a lot of things have changed and some of those things affect my online presence, so you may be interested in them. And then generally I know I've had a lot of questions come up that have been repeated over the past few months that clearly multiple of you are interested in knowing the answers to. I don't know if I was very articulate there, but like I said, it's been a while since I sat down and chatted. And just to make sure I was covering everything, I did do a little Q&A on Instagram, or I requested your questions on Instagram in my stories, and I might be referring back and forth to those a little bit. But then there are other questions that I probably would have talked about even if you hadn't asked about them, because I'm just keen to catch up with you all and update you all on my life and what's going on. So without further ado, let's jump into the actual topic of this video. So let's start with the topic of writing, since I've already mentioned that and it's kind of what's on my mind the most at the moment, and I got a bunch of questions about it, including things just as simple as please share your plan for your next books. So for those of you who are interested in my writing career, what am I up to? As you know, I just had the fantasy book out, which has been so surreal. I am so grateful to all of you who have purchased a copy, an e-copy or a physical copy, or who have even requested your library to order the e-version for Overdrive, which is something you can do if you can't currently budget for the book. You can request any library that uses Overdrive to order it in, but I'll link my book launch down below, which had a lot more detail about all of the ways you can buy The Flames of Albiyon, and it's just been so wonderful. I know that a few of you have really enjoyed it because you've tagged me on Instagram and places like that, which has just brought so much joy to my heart, because this was my joyful passion project. This was my hope punk fantasy novel where I just wanted to write a book for myself that took the tropes I loved in fantasy and put them in one place, as well as maybe covered some bases in fantasy that I wasn't finding elsewhere. For example, one of the major themes of Flames of Albiyon is that it is a book set in a monarchy-free world. It's set 100 years after the end of the Albion monarchy, and there is now instead a parliament and a democracy, and although it has medieval fantasy vibes and high fantasy vibes in certain respects, it veers away from that sort of typical royalty, monarchical society that is very common of that genre. It is also just something that is meant to be a bit of a comfort read. It's a love story and a story about friendship and also fighting against adversity and protecting equality. It is very much rooted in my socialist values. It's not a grim dark fantasy novel, which I know is very popular at the moment, so I really just wanted to like own it, and I wanted to write it myself and bring it out myself and just go through that whole publishing process. So although I am also traditionally published, for me self-publishing just felt very appropriate for this project, and a few of you asked why I decided to go self-publishing, and it's because of that. It's because it's not necessarily what is currently commercially successful. It's not grimdark. It is a passion project in the hope punk genre. It is a sapphic love story, and it's not about toxic relationships, it's about quite the opposite. And I just wanted to kind of be in charge of it and own that, like I said, and sort of be there throughout the whole process. And it's something that I see a lot more in the self-publishing market because it's so interesting. I don't know if you notice this yourself as a reader or somebody that's maybe interested in publishing, but it very much feels like there are different kinds of things that dominate the self-publishing market as opposed to what dominates the traditionally published market. And that's where I very much feel like I can see places for both of those things, and that is wonderful, and I hope to continue down both paths for different works. In terms of what I'm currently working on, however, it's not currently the sequel to the Flames of Albiyon. I apologise for that. I have made notes and have a plot outline for that, but I'm waiting to tackle the actual writing part of that story in a few months because I'm currently on deadline. I'm actually contracted at the moment to write a second children's non-fiction book, which was what my first published work was. I published a non-fiction book called Greek Myths with DK Publishing for children, and I'm currently on deadline for the final version of my second book with them, which is also children's non-fiction, that will be coming out next year, but I can't say any more about what it is or what topic it covers. Just know that I am doing that at the moment, and when I have more information that I can share with you and when there's a pre-order online, then I will share all of that with you as well. But I'm having so much fun returning to this genre. I love writing non-fiction for children. It is something I feel so passionate about and just adore, so I cannot wait for you all to hear and see that book as well. But yeah, you will have updates in the future. I also have another project on my books which is tangentially related to my research, but again, it's something that I signed a contract for and will not be happening or will not be available until 2023, so I just can't really talk about it, which is a shame because I am quite an open person. I'm not a very secretive person, and I like to be able to just talk about everything online, even before I finished it. But yeah, that's where we're at. What that all does mean, however, is that I really feel like I'm getting to grips with my career as a writer, which is really exciting. I have always wanted to be an author. Yes, I'm also interested in academia. I am very close to finishing my PhD, but I've also always felt very passionately about writing for the general population, you know, writing accessible literature, writing fiction, writing non-fiction that anybody can pick up. And I'm passionate about Greek mythology and I'm passionate about ancient history, and whenever I can bring these things together is wonderful for me, but I do want to work on other things, and it feels more and more like that is becoming possible. Now, it is very difficult to make a full-time living simply from writing books, but as long as that can be a good chunk of my career, I'm going to be very, very happy, and it feels like I, you know, have a foot in the door at the moment, which is really, really relieving because I am, like I said, very close to finishing my PhD. I plan on submitting, and this is another thing that a bunch of people asked me about, so I'm just sort of crossing over into it. I plan on submitting in January if all goes according to plan. I'm in my writing up year. I'm nearing the very, very end of this project and I am so excited to be done. Don't get me wrong, I don't regret doing a PhD. I love my PhD topic. I feel very strongly about it and I can't wait for it to exist, for it to be finished, for it to be something that I can potentially write up and publish as a monograph, which is typically what happens with PhD thesis. It gets transformed into something a little bit more accessible but still very academic in the form of a monograph, which would be more of a book style piece of writing, but I am so ready to be done. I have been doing my PhD part-time for 6 years and I have gone through many ups and downs with it, with my research, with my mental health, with my relationship to academia and university, with my hopes for the future and what I plan on doing with my life, and it has been an emotional roller coaster which I just want to move on from now. Like, I want to do this final step. I want to write it down. I want to formulate it all cohesively so that it can be read and marked and I can sit down in my viva and defend anything that they have any problems with potentially, but I do want it to be done. I don't want to do it for another year. I have completely lost what used to very much be a part of me and my personality, which was my desire never to leave university. When I was an undergrad and a master's student and even an early PhD student, I very much felt like I want to study forever. I never want to leave university, or even if I can't study, I want to be a member of staff in an academic capacity and teach. And as much as I enjoy teaching, and I have had the opportunity to teach academically university students, I want to have a break from the university life and the university setting in whatever capacity. I want to move on. I want to do different things. I want to do things that overlap with my PhD, but I do want to leave it behind, and I want it to be finished, and I want to take part in the next chapter of my life. I'm turning 30 next year, so I'm hopefully going to be becoming a doctor, an academic doctor, as well as turning 30 in the same year, and that is all very exciting, but I'm just, you know, ready. I've changed. Like, I've changed during the process of my PhD, and I've changed in a few ways, and my life has changed in a few ways, because as many of you know and have asked about, I have left London, and you have been wondering whether I plan to return to London, because I lived there for 4 years and I adore London. It is one of my favourite places in the entire world, and I loved living there. I also moved back to Edinburgh in a bit of a rush. It wasn't part of the plan. It was very much a result of the pandemic and my both wanting to save money and also keep my mum company, because she does live alone since my dad passed away, and we were all locked down and didn't want to be by ourselves. And since I've moved back to Edinburgh, I have decided to stay. I am not going back to London, except for, you know, maybe like trips to see friends and family and the people that I love that still live there, as well as, you know, visit the sites like the British Museum. But I will probably never live there again. It's hard to say. I don't know exactly what could happen in the future. You never quite know. But my plan is to settle in Edinburgh. My plan had always been to settle in Edinburgh. I'd never planned on staying in London forever. One, because it's just completely unfeasible to me that I would ever be able to afford a home in London that I could buy myself. Two, I want to be close to, you know, my family, who is my mum and her friends. Three, I also just love Edinburgh and so much about it. So it was always my plan to come back. I just came back a little bit sooner than I intended. I intended on finishing my PhD before I ever came back, but you know, a lot changed for a lot of people in the past year and a half, and it was unpredictable and we didn't know what was going to happen, and I feel really good about my decision. It was not an easy one to make, but I've really, in the past few weeks and months, felt so sure of where I'm going and what I've decided to do, which is to stay here. And I'm actually, at the moment, currently flat hunting. So I am buying a flat, if all goes according to plan, with my best friend, and that's something we've been working towards, saving for and planning for you know, quite a while now, ever since I decided I was staying in Edinburgh, which was last year, and I'm super excited to do that. It's all something that I have a very good feeling about, as well as also being close to my mum. And it has been wonderful being able to live with my mum for the past year and a half. I know some people don't get it, like they could not live with their parents, or don't understand why somebody who's 29, 28 would want to live with their parent, but you know, my mum and I have been through a lot in the past few years, especially with my dad passing, and I think it's been very therapeutic and cathartic for our relationship to live together again. It's been very good for my mental health and completing my studies in terms of not worrying about rent. It's been a place where I can take stock of everything, and that has been wonderful. And I also feel like my mum has very much appreciated having me here too, and I think she's pretty glad that I'm staying in Edinburgh, so that's good. Yeah, that is kind of where I'm at with all of that, but I will always miss London, and that is why I am glad there's a 4-hour train to get there, because I will be visiting, especially because some of my most beloved friends and family members, you know, my found family, is there, and I do miss them. Some more questions I got about writing were things like, how on earth were you able to discipline yourself to write a whole book, women? I mean, I completely get that question, because for a long time I really wasn't able to. It's taken me years to get to the stage in my writing where I can complete a big project. When I was younger, I used to write short stories and I used to start novels, but I never finished them. I could get to like 30,000 words, don't get me wrong, but like I never finished them. And it has taken me, you know, just growing as a writer to become somebody who can complete a project. I probably think it helps that I have completed big research projects now in my master's and now my PhD thesis. I mean, my PhD thesis is going to be longer than both the books I've written. And also that I'd written the children's book, which was shorter obviously than a fantasy novel, but I think again completing that is a project. Every time you do it, it gets easier, I think. And I did actually take a little break from the Flames of Albiyon. This is a book that I started not long after my dad died. Like I said, it was a passion project. It was a book of hope and joy for me, and it was something that I delved into after my dad passed away. But I did reach a sort of stage of writer's block, and I'd be more than happy to talk about writer's block in more detail, maybe do a video on my tips and tricks to overcoming writer's block, but also my thoughts on it separately if you'd be interested. But I did reach a stage where I was struggling to persevere, and I think I stopped writing it for like 6 months, and it took me moving back to Edinburgh to finish it. I finished it during the pandemic, which I feel like is such a cliche that we all finished our novels during the pandemic, but I did. I was living with my mum. I was feeling very much like I didn't know where my life was going and what I was doing, and also just struggling mentally, as many of us have been, and returned to Albion. It was the opportunity to return to Albion, and I remembered how much I loved it after those few months away from it, and that's it. Like, I love that there are other people out there who are finding the same joy and solace in my book as I did, but I also did write it for myself. Like, it is a book for me more than anything else, and I love that other people love it. Just cool to know there are people who like the same things as me. I am super excited to write book 2 because I've got so many plans for it. But yeah, like I said, I want to focus on clearing out my deadline, which is for the middle of October, and then I also think I want to take just a little break off and just do some writing practice by participating in Nanowrimo and writing something completely different. Like, I'd like to just, you know, sort of again practice writing by writing something different, and I'd really like to tackle one of my novel ideas during Nanowrimo, like a first draft, a beginning of one of those, before I then, you know, actually start writing Flames of Albiyon book 2, but I plan to write that one a lot quicker. I plan on designating time to writing book 2, which I didn't have before. I used to write it, you know, in my evenings and my time off, whereas now I feel because I have sold copies of book 1 and I have made some money from it, I can use that money to fund writing book 2, if that makes sense. You know, I can pay myself, which is wonderful. But if you are interested, I have like 4 ideas that I'm floating around in my head for Nanowrimo, and I'd love to know which one you think I should tackle. One is that I'd like to try a Greek myth retelling. I won't say who because I might change my mind, but one would be a Greek myth retelling. The second idea that's running through my head is a more medieval historical sapphic fantasy romance novel. I don't want to say like Juliet Miller because there's no way I could write anything like her, but in that kind of setting, a sort of like late ancient, early medieval type Britain, or Scotland, where there are clans and fairies and a sapphic romance. Or I would like to finally, you know, return to my absolute deep desire to one day write an 1800s historical Highlander romance, because I think it'd be so fun to actually have a Highlander romance written by a Scottish person. So that's also on the list. Or lastly is my most recent idea, I would say, and one that I keep coming back to. Like, I feel very attached to this idea, and I don't know whether I should try it during NaNoWriMo or save it for some other time. I don't know when the best time to write it is, but it's a YA gothic horror novel set at a girls' finishing school. And oh my god, I have so many ideas. It feels so vivid in my mind. So yeah, let me know which one of those you think I should write, because genuinely it would really just help me narrow it down and land on one for definite in NaNoWriMo. Also let me know if you would be interested in a Discord server for NaNoWriMo. I tried it last year. My friend Tasman and I set up a Discord, and I know people were using it, but I had a laptop disaster halfway through the month and had to give up on NaNoWriMo because I had to replace my laptop and lost all my progress of what I'd written. So I could bring that back. I could bring back the Discord server this year. Let me know. What else am I rambling on about that you wanted to know about? How is the PhD going? I think I covered that. Are you going to stay in Edinburgh? Again, I feel like I've covered these. Will there ever be an audiobook for Flames of Albiyon? This is a very good question, because I've been thinking a lot about this. As a self-published author for that book in particular, an audiobook's a massive expense. Like, I don't have the funding of a publishing house behind me. So I can't just like pull out of pocket the money to fund an audiobook, pay a professional to use a studio and to record it, and then, you know, submit it to places like Audible, which you can do as a self-published author. At the moment, I can't afford that. I haven't made enough money from the book. I don't have enough spare cash in general. Like I said, I am also trying to buy a flat. But I did come up with a potential alternative. which wouldn't be the traditional method of audiobook. It wouldn't necessarily be as professional, but it might just still be something that you would all enjoy if you're interested in that, because I do really want it to be an audiobook, and I recognise how accessible that makes it and how important audiobooks are to the accessibility of literature. I love them myself. I constantly listen to audiobooks. And in that regard, if I don't go ahead with this plan, which I will outline for you, I will save up to eventually pay for an audiobook, but it could take a couple of years. So I don't know about that. Either, like I said, I save up and in a couple of years fund an audiobook, or I run a Kickstarter and I could use this Kickstarter to raise money effectively with pre-orders of the audiobook to record it myself, because it would take me some time to record it. I obviously have experience on YouTube, I have presented in some other capacities, but I'm not an audiobook narrator. I do however love my book and I do have a strong connection to it, so I know that some of you have indicated you would like to hear me read it. I do also want the narrator to have a Scottish accent because it has a lot of like Scottish and Celtic elements to the story. But I could obviously hire somebody in that capacity. But in that way, all I would really need to ensure is that people would be interested enough in it and the Kickstarter would do that. So what I would do is run a Kickstarter where you could either just like donate £1 if you just wanted to like support the Kickstarter, or for example you could pay £5 and you would then get the audiobook afterwards. So that would be a way to like pre-order it, and it would also help fund me to record it and the time, and I may actually need to get a new microphone so that it was slightly better quality, and then also edit it. As well as potentially, and I've talked about this with my friend Leanne, maybe have some extra tiers where you can get some Flames of Albiyon merch. So like if you have really enjoyed the book and would like some themed bookmarks or pins or something, Leanne and I have talked about collaborating and maybe doing some stuff like that. So that's where I'm at with that idea, and I would really like to know your feedback on it. Obviously it would be an audiobook recorded by yours truly, and I appreciate that would not necessarily be for everybody, but it is an option, and I thought I would put it out there. So yeah, that's where I'm at with the audiobook thing. What are you currently reading? I'm actually currently reading Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert, and it's brilliant. I love it. It's hilarious and fun and romantic and cute and sexy, and I'm into it. Yeah, would recommend. Somebody asked how flat hunting is going, because I think I've mentioned it briefly online, and am I buying with my boyfriend? My boyfriend and I are not buying at this moment in time. I've always very much felt, and I don't think this is any way that something that other people should hold themselves to, because everybody's lives is different, that I would prefer to own either by myself or with somebody else before I buy with a romantic partner, because I feel, I don't know, like it's something that I've always just felt very strongly about. Like, and it's probably just tied up with my childhood and my upbringing, but I have a strong desire to purchase my first place, although not by myself, without the help of a romantic partner. I just feel like that's something that for me means a lot, and it's a wonderful thing to be able to do. And my partner also owns his own flat, so he's not ready to give that up. But you know, in the long run, in a few years' time, we have talked about potentially, you know, moving out of our respective homes whenever I have one and moving in together. But I still feel pretty young and I don't feel like I'm in any rush, and neither does he, so you know, that's just like something for the future to be excited and look forward to. But right now I have another chapter to be excited and look forward to. Somebody asked me to read the people's names and place names from my book because they're not sure of the pronunciation. Hang on, let me just grab the book so I can remind myself of the most important ones. Okay, so this is the book here, and as you're probably aware, the main character is called Adaria, so it is quite a straightforward pronunciation as you see it, but I know it's not a name a lot of people are familiar with. It's an old Scottish name. So yeah, Adaria is the main character. Her love interest is Isla. Her two best friends are Calder and Morag. You don't have to roll your R's. I recognise that not everybody can roll their R's, so that's okay. The setting for the book is of course Albion. Two of the major place names are Eolas and Bailey. My friend Jill, however, always calls it Bale, and I honestly don't mind. If you read it as Bale instead of Bailey, go for it. I don't really care. They're just names that I made up. And you know, people pronounce things differently in the real world, so why not in a fantasy world? I say Bailey, Jill says Bale. There you have it. This is going to be so embarrassing if I forget anybody. The University Council is made up of Tronk, the Goblin liaison, Lady Mirren, the Fairy liaison, the Chancellor Alaya, the Head Librarian Angus, and Cyril, the head academic of the teaching department. We then also have the dragons, who are Tierlach, so it's like Loch, but again, if you can't make that noise, no worries. If you just say Tierlach, I'm not gonna have a go at you. Fia, Greer, Dilius, Asha, Taran, Callan, Cartamandua. I think that's all the dragons that are in book one, or at least the main ones, including Cartamandua, who is the sort of ancient old one who's mentioned as the first dragon to have emigrated to Albion. We then have the dragon companions, aside from Isla and Adaria, who include Audi, Bar, Aftab and Magnus. And do you know what, I think I'm going to stop there because otherwise this is going to go on for a very long time, but hopefully that helped a little bit. And if you would like a pronunciation guide in full, I could put one on my website, because I do now have an actual website. I made and paid for a proper website with proper pages dedicated to all the things I'm involved in and all my projects and all my writing and everything else, so I could upload a pronunciation guide there. So let me know, or if you have any just particular characters that you've read in the book and want a clarification on, then leave it in the comments down below. But yeah, actually this may also be a pertinent place to ask. Something I've been thinking of doing is kind of just redoing my Patreon a little bit and changing some of the tiers, and one I really wanted to add, because I actually support other authors on Patreon who do this and I really enjoy it from them, is bonus writing material. So I was thinking of adding a tier wherein you could read anything I'm currently writing, so I could share excerpts from stuff I'm writing, but also stories from Albion, because I have a bunch of stories, side stories, that I have written whilst writing the book that helped me sort of explore the characters and who they are, and also little moments in time that just didn't seem pertinent to the novel itself, like interactions between some of the dragons, or what Adaria's friends get up to when she's not there. And if you are into that and like reading about side characters, you may enjoy then reading them on my Patreon. So let me know, because that's something I would be really interested in doing. But obviously I'm just going to post all this nonsense online if people are not into it. So yeah, that's something I would also like to hear from you on. So a lot of your questions do sort of touch on things I've already covered, and I've probably been here for a while now, so I'm going to finish things off with obviously the most important question that I received, which is, what's your favourite board game? Yes, this is the most important one, because I have to say I am committing to this answer, although I may regret it in the future when I discover new and exciting board games. It's Everdell. Everdell is phenomenal. If you don't know, my boyfriend and I are massive board game nerds. We love playing board games, and we actually have an entire Instagram account dedicated to board game reviews and just sharing what we're playing with everybody, which is called Just a Couple of Meeples. I'll link it down below if you haven't seen it before. But yeah, we do update there sporadically and share our thoughts on different games, plus what we are trying out and what's new. And the one that we return to time and time again is Everdell. It's a worker placement game with a bit of like an RPG vibe, because you're building a city full of lots of creatures and animals. It's very woodlandy, it's very nature vibes, it's beautiful, and it's just so much fun. I cannot get enough of it. But yeah, I love Everdell and would recommend it to anybody and everybody who is interested. You can actually play it by yourself, so it works as a one-player game. It's great for a two-player game, and then you can also, I think, go up to like maybe 4 in the regular one, but with the expansions you can add in more players. I think that's right, correct me if I'm wrong. We've only ever played it with 2 or 3, and my boyfriend has played it with 1 and also said that it's very good with 1. So yeah, pretty sure it's Everdell. Can't say that I would pick anything else above that. If I had to get rid of every other game and only keep one, I think I would keep Everdell, although I hope that never has to happen. So yeah, that is just my like general chitty chatty life update. I hope you have enjoyed hearing what's going on in my life, or I have clarified some things that you are curious about. I will be back to our regularly scheduled viewing very soon. I have some videos that I'm super excited to record coming up, and I'm really hoping to invest some time in some some longer format videos soon, some more like video essays, some more videos about classics. So I hope that's something that you are interested in, as well as my good old-fashioned bookish content. I should also probably mention here, because I keep forgetting to, and a bunch of you have asked about this, my podcast is coming back. So if you are specifically interested in ancient history and mythology, then do not worry. That's Ancient History is soon to be back on your podcast apps. It is starting back up in October. You can follow That's Ancient on Twitter to get any like ongoing updates. But I already have quite a few episodes recorded, which I'm super excited to share with you, including a very fun interview with an author who has a very exciting Greek myth retelling coming out soon that I won't spoil for you. But yeah, I'm very, very excited to upload those episodes and get back to the podcasting, because it was just something that had to sort of take a back seat whilst life was going through changes and I was moving from London and the pandemic was happening. But now I'm ready to return, and I hope that you're all going to enjoy the new season. So yeah, that is everything, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye everyone.